Lately, I've been watching Superman and Lois, and boy, is it good. Tyler Hoechlin does a great job as Superman. Seeing Superman dealing with the struggles of being, well, human is just genius. And the quality has definitely been upped in a few departments compared to other CW shows. There's really only one thing that I wouldn't say has been bothering me, but has definitely had me thinking. And that's, man, I wish the rest of the Justice League existed. Not that Superman and Lois needs other heroes to exist. In fact, having Superman be the only hero seems to work with what they're doing. But maybe I've just been spoiled by Marvel, but actually seeing a good DC show or movie that seems to get the characters right and have good writing and all of that makes me just wish we could get that in an interconnected universe. Have our cake and eat it too, you know? Obviously not that everything needs to be connected, the way a movie like Shang-Chi can sort of stand on its own, but it's nice to know that Shang-Chi takes place in a universe with just about every other Marvel character in it. And that got me thinking. Okay, so DC's kind of dropped the ball a few times already with this whole cinematic universe thing. How exactly could this time be different? Well, besides the biggest issue with the original DCEU, being them trying to play catch up with Marvel, as long as they don't do that and jump headfirst into a team-up movie or something, they should be fine. But seriously, what could they do this time to make it work? I do think they could take the slow and steady route and just build up their universe, same as Marvel, but you know what? I'm impatient, and so is DC considering their actions from before, so I suggest something a little different. Ever heard of New 52? See, in the comics, DC in particular likes to sort of reset their universe every once in a while. Have a new status quo, remove or introduce some characters, the whole shebang. But they didn't want to have to start from the very beginning again. Something I think Marvel Comics should do, with origin stories and all that stuff. That would mean characters like, say, Nightwing or Red Hood, now both immensely popular characters in their own right, who could have solo series and all sorts of stuff, wouldn't exist or would be former versions of themselves. Since, depending on when this reboot would take place, Batman may still be a solo act, or would be with Dick Grayson as just a teenage Robin, not Nightwing, let alone any of the other Robins. So DC wanted to maintain the cast of characters and core themes they've built up over these years, but while still chopping off some of the fat and leaving room for some new and interesting concepts. So that's exactly what they did. New 52 and subsequent reboots like Rebirth, though they have a mixed reception with the fans, kept many of the characters we know and love, but while still resetting the status quo a bit to allow for new and interesting stories. I think this exact approach of jumping straight into the DC universe already being a thing, with certain characters and elements already existing, is exactly what the DCEU needs. Think about it. Superman would already be Superman. Batman would already be Batman. The Justice League likely already formed. Superheroes and metahumans are at the very least known about. This doesn't mean that we won't get amazing stories, like the League fighting Darkseid for the first time, or creating the Watchtower. Many things would still be in their early days. It just wouldn't have to start from literally the ground floor, spending all this time doing things most people already know, even general audiences. I think there's a fair argument to be made that more people knew about the Justice League than they did the Avengers, before 2012 at the very least. And most people probably knew Superman and Batman more than they did Cap and definitely Iron Man. And that's coming from someone who's more of a Marvel fan. So we don't need to retread that same ground. We especially get to skip over origin scenes, similar to what they did with MCU Spidey. Most people probably know or at least understand the more important characters' origins. We don't need to spend the first half hour of a film retreading Bruce's parents being murdered, and him going around the world training or making his suit for the very first time. Not that those elements aren't important, i.e. Bruce's parents, but they can be explored throughout his films, through his character and his actions, rather than take time away from a motion picture, which already has limited time to begin with. This doesn't mean a character can't still be in their early days, or be fighting an iconic villain for the first time, or learning integral lessons for their character. Take the Batman as an example. Batman was still in his first year or two in that film. He was still new, still fighting characters like the Riddler for the first time, and still growing as a character. But we didn't need to see him trying to buy the supplies for his suit or do a training montage or something. We got to get right into the good stuff. The same can be said for the League as well. The League could have fought their first villain or villains, but they still don't have a grasp on what it means to be a team yet. what it means for these godlike figures to be working together, protecting and making decisions for the world. Just because I said we start out with the Justice League established doesn't mean they're the League yet. They would only have some of the core members, and a few could still join in the first few films through their origin stories. But it wouldn't be Justice League Unlimited or anything like that. After their first film, hopefully a few movies into this cinematic universe, they'd become more established as the Justice League we know and love. Clark and Bruce possibly building up a friendship and trust, more members coming onto the team, the world, for now, understanding that there's a super team among them and that they're here to help. As for bad guys, I don't think it's the best idea to open with Darkseid like the New 52 did. That's probably why Snyder opened with Steppenwolf, so you still have something to build up to. I don't know if I'd even do that though. I want some of the nuance of earthbound problems and supervillains that will seem almost small in comparison once everyone finds out about this giant dude from another planet called Apocalypse. So maybe a more earthbound threat could work. For the big bads of these first few films, it could be something like the Legion of Doom or the Light, maybe even Vandal Savage if they wanted to make it a singular person. I think the Legion of Doom especially would be a big distinction from Marvel. It may seem a little corny, but especially if they do it similarly to the Light from Young Justice, having them be a shadowy cabal of some of the world's most powerful people moving against this Justice League that keeps disrupting their status quo would be awesome, compared to the singular figurehead type villains that Marvel has. And as for films, I do have some ideas which I think would work really well that I may do a deep dive into in another video. But as for the main concepts, I think having films about the core members like Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, a Justice League film maybe after, I don't know, 3 to 6 films. I'd love a Teen Titans or Young Justice style film in there, Justice League Dark, and the Lanterns deserve an awesome space-based film too. Basically, just round out the DC universe one film at a time, because all of these concepts can work together. And then, from basically the onset, you can have the League, solo films, teen and young adult heroes, space stuff, magic stuff, all going on in the universe at the same time. DC could then completely continue their current focus on solo movies and on the characters themselves, while still having them exist in a shared universe. There doesn't need to be a huge team-up film all the time. They don't have to be always building to something. A Justice League film could stand just as good on its own, aside from major character changes, like a death or something. They can still acknowledge some of these conjoined elements. They just don't have to be defined by them. Best of all, they can use the shared universe to their advantage. A Titans movie, at least one with the sidekicks, couldn't exist without the heroes these sidekicks work with existing out there somewhere. You can bring characters into the solo movies to enhance the mythos, whether it's a small cameo like Doctor Strange in Thor Ragnarok, or a major role like Hulk in Thor Ragnarok. The shared aspect of this universe could be a plus, not a minus. I think jumping straight into it can give DC fans the best of both worlds. A universe built around the characters, where we see them grow and change, while also having a shared DC universe where all of our favorite characters and elements could come together. That's how I think the DCEU should be rebooted. What essential films do you think need to be a part of a reboot of the DCEU? Let's discuss down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, a like or a sub to the channel would be greatly appreciated. It helps the channel out a lot. As always, I'm Parker Fox, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.